He thought she was stealing. He thought she was mocking him. But when the billionaire walked into his kitchen and saw his maid kneeling on the floor, eating from a dog's bowl, time stopped. Because the moment she lifted her tear-streaked face and spoke, the truth she revealed would shatter everything he believed about power, loyalty, and what it means to be human. This is the story of hunger, cruelty, and one broken woman's voice that changed the richest house in the city forever. Evelyn Brooks had learned to live with hunger, not just the kind that twisted your stomach, but the kind that hollowed out your soul. Her grandmother used to boil rice water and call it soup. Her little brother would beg for one more spoonful, and Evelyn would smile and pretend she was full, so he could have it instead. Books, dreams, childhood, all traded for survival. At 16, while her classmates wrote essays about their futures, Evelyn was scrubbing toilets in strangers' houses. Her hands cracked, her back ached, but she never complained. Because every dollar meant medicine for her brother, notebooks for her sister, and maybe, one night without hunger. By 27, exhaustion had carved lines into her face. When the letter came, "You're hired as a maid at the Harlan estate," she whispered, "Thank you, God." Even though she knew heaven didn't often listen to people like her, the Harlan mansion wasn't a home. It was a world, one of chandeliers, marble halls, and mirrors that never reflected poverty. And inside it lived Victor Harlan, a billionaire whose voice could silence a room and whose eyes, some said, never saw people, only property. But Evelyn didn't fear Victor. Not yet, because she had someone else to fear, Mr. Marcus Reed, the head butler. On her first day, Reed's shoes clicked against the marble as he inspected her. "No eating until every corner shines," he said, voice smooth but sharp. Evelyn hesitated. "But, sir, it's already past 9. His eyes narrowed. "Do I look like I care what time it is?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "If you want to eat, work faster." That night, Evelyn's hands bled. By the time she was done, the kitchen lights were off and the staff food was gone. When she reached for a slice of bread left on the counter, Reed's voice cut through the dark. "Touch it," he whispered, "and you'll regret it." So she didn't. Day after day, Reed's cruelty grew. Sometimes he'd forget to include her in meal counts. Other times, he'd lock the pantry early, claiming discipline builds character. The other maids said nothing. They couldn't. Reed's word was law, and defiance meant unemployment, or worse. But Evelyn's body couldn't take it anymore. Her stomach burned, her head spun. Still, she kept working, because hunger was temporary. Pride, that could feed no one. One cold evening, Evelyn was finishing the dining hall when her vision blurred. She leaned against the wall, breath shallow. From the corner, she saw a silver bowl filled with scraps, food meant for the master's golden retriever, Bentley. The smell of meat, even leftovers, made her dizzy. She whispered, "Just one bite." Her knees gave way, and before she knew it, she was on the floor, trembling. Her fingers scooped the scraps. Tears streamed down her face as she brought it to her mouth. That's when she heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Approaching. She froze. Her heart stopped. Victor Harlan, the billionaire himself, stood in the doorway. For a moment, the world held its breath. Bentley barked softly beside her. The billionaire's shadow stretched across the marble, swallowing her in silence. "What?" he said quietly. "Are you doing?" Evelyn turned, shaking, her lips trembling. I'm sorry, sir. I wasn't stealing. Her voice cracked. "I was hungry." Victor's brows furrowed. "Hungry? You're a staff member. You eat in the kitchen." She shook her head violently. He doesn't let me. Mr. Reed. He says no meals until the work is done." Victor blinked. "Reed? Please," Evelyn whispered, voice trembling. "I swear I didn't mean to disrespect. I just hadn't eaten in 2 days." Her words hung like smoke, fragile, yet heavy with truth. Then a second voice slithered into the room. Master Harlan, said Reed from the doorway, his pale face stretched into a frown. This girl is lying, always making excuses. She's lazy and dramatic. If she's starving, it's her own fault. Evelyn flinched. Please, sir. Reed's voice sharpened. Enough. You shame this house with your theatrics. Victor's eyes moved between them, the trembling maid and the man he'd trusted for 30 years. Is that true, Reed? You withheld food? Reed scoffed. Discipline must be maintained. You start feeding servants every time they whine, and you'll have beggars, not staff. Victor's gaze hardened. He looked again at Evelyn, her hollow cheeks, her shaking hands, the way she hugged herself as if to stop the hunger from clawing out of her. For the first time in years, he saw a human being, not an employee. He stepped closer to Reed. You starve my staff, he said quietly, and call it discipline? Reed's chin lifted. I call it order. Victor's voice dropped to a near whisper, the kind that chilled the air. Pack your things, Reed blinked. Sir? You're finished, Victor said. 30 years or not, you'll leave my house tonight. For a moment, silence. Then Reed's mask cracked. You'll regret this, he hissed. Victor didn't flinch. No, I regret not seeing it sooner. Reed stormed out, his footsteps echoing through the hall like a verdict. The kitchen fell silent. Evelyn stood frozen, her body shaking. She couldn't tell if she'd just been saved or destroyed. Victor looked at her again. His tone softened, though his eyes remained stern. You should have spoken sooner, he said. Her lips quivered. Would you have listened? The question hit him harder than he expected. For years he'd walked these halls blind, surrounded by gold and silence. He had trusted Reed to maintain order, never realizing that order had a cost. He exhaled slowly. You'll eat properly from now on, he said. And your wages will increase. Enough for your family's needs. Evelyn gasped, covering her mouth. Sir, don't thank me, he interrupted. This is correction, not kindness. Then softer. I let a cruel man run my house. That ends tonight. Her tears fell, but this time, they were warm. She whispered, I'll still work hard, sir. Harder than ever. But I won't forget this. Victor nodded once, firm, respectful. Then he turned to leave. Behind him, Evelyn looked at the metal bowl still glinting on the floor. Shame burned her cheeks, but beneath it something new stirred. Resolve. She would never kneel for scraps again. Not for food, not for survival, not for anyone. That night, word spread through the mansion. Reed was gone, and something else had changed. Not just in the house, but in its master. The next morning, Victor walked the halls differently. He noticed the calloused hands that polished his floors, the quiet exhaustion behind the servants' smiles, and for the first time he said, thank you. Weeks later, he found Evelyn again, this time in the garden, helping the gardener trim the hedges. How's your brother? He asked. She blinked, startled. Better, sir. The new wages? They help. He nodded slowly, then offered something she never expected. A small envelope. For your studies, he said. Evening classes. You said you wanted to learn? Her hands shook. Sir, You've earned it, Victor said quietly. And maybe it's time I learned too. Evelyn smiled, the first genuine one in years. Learn what, sir? To see, he replied simply. For once, he didn't sound like a billionaire. He sounded like a man. Closing. The human payoff and CTA. And so the mansion that once ran on silence began to breathe again. Meals were shared, voices were heard, and walls that once echoed with fear now carried laughter. Evelyn Brooks would go on to finish her studies. And one day, she'd return not as a maid, but as the manager of Victor's entire estate. Because one moment of courage, one broken truth spoken through tears, can change even the coldest hearts. So tell me, if you were Victor, would you have done the same? Or would you have walked away, pretending not to see? If this story moved you, don't just scroll. Tap the heart, share it forward, and remind someone. Sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths.